Yo, what is up, guys? We're back with a brand new video today. It is Freddy Knows Ball, and we're going to be talking about words in context today. It is a question type on the SAT that I have some strategies for you guys today, and we're going to get right into it. Let's go, guys. Let's go, guys. Let's go. All right. Words in context is made up of two things: accurate words and vocab in context. One of them is basically like the traditional vocab that you think of when you're in module 2 of the SAT and you hit question 1 and it's talking about some like spurious or like just some weird word, you know? Let's see if I have one here. Innocuous or extol, like words that you would never see in normal day. And so that is classified as accurate words. Now, words in context is a little different. It's a simple word that is used, but it's like you have to figure out which way it's used. And the answer choices are basically like which word could be used in this blank that still means this word and also works best in this sentence. You'll see what I mean, guys. Let's just get right into it. But yeah. All right, so here's the first question. And before we get into it,
ball knowledge.
SAT vocab questions, like I just said, are really difficult and they can be really weird words sometimes. So I found this unique strategy that I actually just stumbled across recently. And it is from this other YouTuber, James Liu. I've mentioned him in the past. But yeah, I got this strategy from him, so I just wanted to give credit. But it's actually to get better at guessing the SAT vocab words. Because let's be honest, there are so many words that the SAT could use in the vocab section, and it is nearly impossible to know all of them. So unless you get really lucky, you're going to be struggling and you're not going to know some of the words on the vocab section. So this strategy teaches you to kind of critically think, but it also has a guessing aspect to it, right? You're not going to get it right every time. I'm just going to leave a link in the description to the Quizlet that James Liu has in his video. I'm just gonna leave a link to the Quizlet that James Liu has in his video, and from there you guys can practice all of these vocab that have showed up on SAT practice tests before or just are in the question bank. Definitely practice those. I think that it can definitely boost your score to just get better at just sort of guessing the words. And I know a lot of people would recommend learning the roots. I personally don't learn the roots. I don't feel like they help me too much. If I do see a part inside the word though, like a syllable or a word inside of the word that I do understand, I use that to my advantage. I definitely would say, like, let me find an example here. I see the word impending in the vocab choices coming up, right? And I know that pending means like loading. So I'm gonna use that to be like, okay, maybe impending has something to do with loading, right? So that's pretty much the ball knowledge for today. Let's get right into the questions, and we can just go ahead and fly through these vocab questions, make sure we get that perfect score on vocab. Let's get it. Oh, yes, before we continue, I need to make sure that I tell you that boss works here. Boss works. You need to guess what the word will be with your own word before you look at the answer choices. I know it sounds like I say this every time. I don't even know if I mentioned the acronym BOSS. It means build your own solution, build own simple solution. I just call it BOSS. You know, there's plenty of different acronyms, analogies, whatever you call them, to figure that out. But that's just the one that I personally use, and that's the one that I'll be saying and repeating over the lessons. Economists often assert that countries looking to increase their reliance on solar energy should expand their capacity for storage. Having an ample reserve of stored energy can mitigate the effects of blank solar energy collection caused by unpredictable shifts in cloud cover and haze. Another thing I want to point out, guys, for these vocab questions, sometimes within the sentence or the passage that they give you, they'll give you synonyms or antonyms to the actual vocab word. In this one, it's a great example. It says unpredictable shifts. That's pretty much exactly what we want to go in the blank. So my solution, my boss, would literally be unpredictable shifts, mitigating the effects of shifts in solar energy collection caused by these shifts in cloud cover and haze. Like another word I could use is like suboptimal, right? Like things that you need to account for that might not be always happening. That's what I'm thinking. And so when we look at the answer choices, we see developments of, that's not aligning. That doesn't align. Fluctuations in, that does align, right? Fluctuations means shifts up and down, unpredictable movements, right? Calibrations with, that's not aligning, and incentives for, that doesn't align. So we see that B aligns best with the solution here. And if you guys didn't solve it the same way I did, but still ended up with the correct answer, most likely you're chilling, because if you can eliminate the other three choices, even if you don't know what fluctuations means, then you'll be fine, because you'll ultimately get the right answer either way. But it's super important to understand the passage for these ones. I know it's annoying, you actually have to use your brain sometimes, but it is really important if you want to get the right answer and therefore get a 1600 for these questions. For the next one, we see it's a vocab question. Austin McCoy has argued that historians have tended to blank rank and file workers in analyses of changes in organized labor in the United States in the decades following the Second World War, presenting political, business, and labor leaders as the major actors and ordinary workers as nearly devoid of agency. All right, so I'm seeing rank and file workers, and I'm seeing political, business, and labor leaders. So I feel like those are kind of opposites, right? Because rank and file workers, to me, that sounds like the 9-to-5 people, right? That's what's going on in my brain. So when I'm looking at the blank, I'm thinking it's something along the lines of neglect. I'm thinking neglect, maybe overlook these people, because it's saying the business leaders and labor leaders are the major actors, and they're the ones that are actually getting the clout, right? That's what I'm thinking. So my solution would be neglect. We look at the answer choices. A is epitomize. I don't know what that means, so let's move on. B is marginalize. Okay, this is a great example of I know what margin means, right? When you have a page and you have margins on the page, that's kind of like the categorizing, right? That's what categorizes it. And so it kind of separates certain things. C is extol. I don't know what that means. And D means substantiate, which I think kind of means to enforce maybe, but I'm not even sure. But marginalize actually fits great, because if we're saying marginalize, we're basically saying that we're putting them in a certain category, which could lead to us saying that we're overlooking them. So I don't think that's too much of a stretch, and in this case, B was the correct answer. If you guys, like I said, if you guys have a different way of solving this, it's different for everybody. As long as you understand the passage and you find a way to navigate to the right answer, please do that, right? Whatever works for you. Next question. Barring major archaeological discoveries, we are unlikely to ever have blank account of ancient Egypt under the female pharaoh hat, as much of the evidence of her reign was deliberately destroyed by her successors. All right, so we're saying that a lot of the information was destroyed. So we're probably not going to have detailed account. I would say detailed. I would say confirmed. One of those two would be my solution, because if a lot of the evidence is gone, we don't have a detailed, or we don't have too much proof. If we look at the answers, we see imaginative. I see imagination in there. That doesn't sound like it would align. Superficial actually shows up a lot on the SAT. So if you don't know what this word means, it means surface level. That's how I remember it. It means not a super deep understanding. So it's actually the opposite of what we want. We want a deeper understanding, or a deeper account of ancient Egypt. This is saying a superficial account, which is surface level, which is not what we want to say. An exhaustive. That means if someone would say, I have an exhaustive list of places to go to, that means they have tons of places, right? They have a lot of detailed information on these places, and just so many of them, right? An abundance of them. And that's a great answer choice here. That essentially goes with our solution. Questionable does not, because question, that kind of means it's iffy, and we're looking for concrete evidence, right? So that's also kind of an opposite. And so hopefully that made sense. In my opinion, knowing what superficial really changed the game there. And so that's why I think it's so important, because I've actually seen it on, I think, at least one of the tests I've taken, like the official College Board tests. This is the last accurate words question. KD and colleagues found that the sun's corona provides an advanced indication of solar flares, intense eruptions, non-essential information. Preceding a flare, the corona temporarily exhibits increased brightness above the region where the flare is blank. Right off the bat, I'm thinking where the flare is present. But if we look more into it, we see that it provides an advance indication. So I'm thinking something like that is synonymous with the word we're trying to find. It's where the flare is about to come from. That's my boss. So let's look at the answer choices. Antecedent, I'm not sure how that would fit here. So I'm going to have to skip that one. Impending, this is the one I actually used when I was talking about it in the beginning of the video. I know pending kind of means loading or like processing. And so I think that actually fits here pretty well because it's like where the flare is about to come from, where the flare is impending, where it is about to show up, right? And I don't know what innocuous really means, and I know perpetual kind of means repetitive, and that's not what we're talking about here. So obviously I can't be 1,000,000% positive since I don't know what antecedent or innocuous mean. But if you guys didn't know, on the SAT, there is typically a curve. It's not a traditional curve, and I believe it actually depends on how a certain pool of students do. And based on that, they'll actually either take some answer choices and have them of no value so that it's like whether you get it right or wrong, it won't count against you. But you don't want to rely on that, obviously, but I'm just saying, if there is a question where you literally don't know anything about the words and you don't even understand the text, don't stress out because you might still get a curve up. And so you still have an opportunity for a 1600. Like I said, don't rely on that, but I just want to throw that out there. It's still possible. In this case, though, impending works pretty nicely and it lines up with my boss very well. All right, now words in context. We can take a little breather here, guys, because this is a less difficult subject. I did pull some pretty hard questions from it, but overall, you guys shouldn't try to stress about this too much. As long as you do enough practice and preparation, you guys will be completely fine here. So it's typically an easier word, like I said, and you can definitely still boss this. You can definitely still build your own solution. And I know it's obvious, but for vocab and context, you really want to focus on the context and what's surrounding, what's the passage about. You still want to have an understanding of the passage so that you can more confidently choose the right answer. First question. The following text is adapted from Nathaniel's story. Oh, guys, it's a blurb. What do you guys know about blurbs? Always read the blurb. Guys, I hope you remembered that. I really hope you did. Anyways, let's continue. Nathaniel Hawthorne's story, Doctor's Experiment. The main character, a physician, is experimenting with rehydrating a dried flower. Guys, the blurb's so important here because if we didn't read that, we wouldn't even know what the story's going to be about. And that gives us more context, gives us more understanding of the passage, and therefore gives us a better chance of getting the question right. Let's go, guys. At first, the rose lay lightly on the surface of the fluid, appearing to imbibe none of its moisture. Soon, however, a singular change began to be visible. The crushed and dried petals stirred and assumed a deepening tinge of crimson as if the flower were reviving from a death-like slumber. All right, guys, listen. When I think of singular, I think of one. No more than one. Okay? That's what goes in my brain. For this question, that's not an option. One is not an option. The closest to that would be a lonely, but if you say a lonely change began to be visible, that doesn't really fit the text. Because the text is talking about this crazy revival and this flower blooming and the dried petals stirring like it's some sort of magic, right? So my boss here would be a magical change. Even though we might not think of singular like that, I do know of the word singularity, and I think, maybe singular could have a different definition. And so in these answer choices, we see disagreeable doesn't make sense. Like we said, lonely doesn't make sense. Acceptable, that's not magical, Extraordinary is exactly what we're looking for here. And so this is a difficult question because some people might not know that singular has that definition. But when you look at the text, if it was lonely, it wouldn't be talking about this magical stirring and reviving of this flower. You know what I'm saying? So just look out for the context. Like I said, that's one of the most important things about these passages. All right, next question. We got a blurb again. The following text is adapted from Zora's short story, John Redding Goes to Sea. John wants to travel far beyond the village where he lives near his mother, Maddie. John had on several occasions attempted to reconcile his mother to the notion, but found it a difficult task. So I'm assuming that's talking about trying to get his mother on board with traveling far beyond the village. So that's my boss already, but let's finish reading. Maddie always took refuge in self-pity and tears. Her son's desires were incomprehensible to her. That was all. So basically, Maddie is his mother. Wow. And she says that she always took refuge in self-pity and tears. My solution is pretty much to get his mother on board. Let's look into the answer choices. Get his mother to accept. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Get his mother to accept. Get his mother to be on board. I feel like that's pretty much the same thing. Let's keep looking. Get his mother to apologize for. There's no need to apologize. Get his mother to match. No. If you guys don't know, notion is also a pretty commonly used SAT vocab word. Notion is basically like an idea. He's trying to get his mother on board with this idea of going far and traveling. So match doesn't make sense here. And reunite would be a close second to A. But the reason reunite is incorrect is because there's no evidence that they were ever united. We never know that she was like, yeah, I'll let you go. And then she's like, nah, I'm not letting you go anymore. And so reuniting would be like, she said, yeah, then she changed her mind, and now he's trying to get her to change her mind again. If it's get his mother to unite with the idea, then now A and D have a little bit of conflict, right? But it's reunite. So A is dead obvious the correct answer here. Let's move on to the next one. The following text is adapted from this play, The Importance of Being Earnest. Have we got to part? I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting. It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. But even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable. Dang, that's kind of deep. With these texts, while I'm on that topic, guys, don't be afraid to actually indulge in the text. Have your own thoughts about it. Be fascinated by the text. It'll help you understand what you're reading. And if you're actually fascinated by it, whether you actually are or you're just gaslighting yourself, it can help you understand. It can help you get the right answer. Don't be afraid to really indulge in it. Just try not to obviously spend 5 minutes in awe, right? But yeah, what does the word endure most nearly mean? Here I'm thinking endure basically just means like one can bear this pain with equanimity, basically. I'm saying bear this pain, like forever, basically. And so that's my boss, bear this pain. When we look at the answer choices, regret, that doesn't make sense. One can regret the absence, no. Persist is kind of to like continue moving forward. Bear the pain and continue moving forward are completely different. Tolerate. If I'm tolerating something, I'm bearing with it, right? That makes perfect sense. And then encourage doesn't align. So C is dead obvious correct here. As you can see, the words they use in the answer choices aren't super difficult, right? They're words you see pretty frequently, pretty often. And so that's why I think words in context is much more about the passage itself and just really building your own solution. Sometimes your solution might even literally be the word in the answer choices. So I definitely think it's super important. Let's go on to the last question for the day. The following text is from the novel The Ancient Child by Kiowa Ryder. The main character has achieved tremendous commercial success as a painter. More and more often, he was asked to compromise his art or himself in one way or another, and more often than not, he did so, for he was inclined to be passive and naive. It was difficult for him to say no. Those who exhibited his work, who praised and purchased it, and who demanded its proliferation began to determine it. So in this case, I think that determine basically means that they began to kind of know what it's going to be. Like they were the ones telling him what it's going to be. Like it was their art and not his, essentially. So if we look at the answer choices, what most closely aligns with that? This one's tricky, guys. I can't lie, this one's tricky. Conclude doesn't make sense because they began to conclude it That would be like saying they began to find the end of it, and because conclude is like the ending, right? That's not right. Dictate is a very attractive answer choice here, guys. It's very attractive because so if they began to dictate it, that basically means that they have a say in what it is, and I think that's exactly what it's saying. They are the ones saying what they want his art to be, and he is basically going into their mold, like what they want it to be. So I like that answer choice. Let's look at the rest. Evaluate, that's more of like an analysis thing. That's like saying like they're gonna inspect it or analyze it. That's not really what we're trying to say here. Select, I'm not gonna lie, select is a really attractive answer choice. The reason that you have to be careful with select is because it's not extreme. It's not as extreme as the passage is making it seem. Ooh. Okay, so basically, when you say that it was difficult for him to say no, and these guys were demanding its proliferation, and they were making him compromise his art, they're not just selecting it. Select is just too soft, right? If they began to select it, you have to look at the definition of select really carefully, because you could think it means that they're selecting its work, but that's not what this is saying. It's saying they're selecting the actual piece of art. They're not selecting how it works. That's not what this is asking. So dictate's the right answer. Hopefully that made sense, guys. I really do try to explain these as in-depth and as simple as I possibly can. If these videos help you at all, please feel free to subscribe. It'll definitely contribute to the quality of these videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. We got a banger coming up, and yeah, stay tuned. Peace.